Hi, I'm Elle Macpherson, and Kara and I just had one of the most extraordinary conversations. Probably one of the best podcasts I've ever done.
I'm a therapist. So everything you're talking about in your book, everything you're talking about now, it's very much in line with what I do.
It is so valuable and it is so worthwhile to have the experiences that we have because they teach us if you choose to learn.
I like to say that rock bottom is a gift.
Truly.
Sometimes when you hit rock bottom, it is the turning point that you needed to move into a much better direction.
And sometimes you don't even have to hit rock bottom. I remember when I was getting sober, I hadn't hit rock bottom, and it wasn't even clear to me that alcohol was a predominant factor in my life. And I remember kind of asking somebody, do you think I need to go to AA? And I said, because I've still got my job, I'm working, I've got 2 beautiful children, I'm in a relationship. It doesn't feel like what I think a rock bottom would feel like in order to make that kind of change. Maybe I'm not that bad. And then somebody wisely said to me, you don't have to get off on the ground floor. You can get off on the 4th floor of the elevator. And that was such an epiphany for me. It was like, I can see where this is heading. I'm not there, but why do I have to go there in order to climb my way back? And so in one hand, it was much easier because I didn't have the devastation, external devastation. I had the internal devastation. And on the other hand, it was quite difficult to stay motivated and focused because I thought, well, I'm not that bad compared to many people.
Right. I mean, I think you're rare, though. I don't think a lot of people would do it at that point. But as I was reading your book, I could tell that you were very self-aware. I think you always were self-aware. Would you agree?
No, I wasn't always self-aware, but I became along the way. And I started to see the threads and the sort of messaging that I was getting in life, and they accumulated. And so I started to trust myself more, trust that there was a purpose for everything, a reason for everything, even if I didn't see it at that particular time. And that, I built a relationship with myself, with my inner self, and over time I trusted myself more, and over time I started to become more self-aware. It's never too late to begin to have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So when you were drinking, you just kind of noticed certain things. Like, what were the signs that you saw that made you think maybe I should seek help?
I don't think there's a checklist of things of like if you're drinking in the morning.
For you personally.
For me personally, it was when I realized that I was simply living a life I didn't want to live in many ways. Like I just wasn't as present as I'd like to be. I was always nervous. I was always anxious. I wasn't me, I was a muted version of me, because that's what alcohol does. It disconnects you from yourself. And it's a vicious cycle because you feel disconnected, therefore you drink, because it's very painful to feel disconnected from yourself. And then the more you drink, the more disconnected you become to yourself and other people. And so, connection is the thing that we crave as in the species of light beings in this human form. We crave connection, connection to ourselves, to the universe, to a power greater than ourselves, to nature, to each other. And I just felt disconnected. I felt numb and afraid. Yeah.
Afraid of what?
Afraid of life. Afraid of myself. I didn't feel confident. So it was, and that changed, when I got sober, like from night and day. I grew into myself. That was a big turning point for me. And I got sober at 40. I didn't even start really drinking until I was 30, but I did get sober at 40.
So confidence is interesting to me as well. So you seem to radiate this self-assurance and confidence, right? But I read the book and I know that you sometimes had, and you wrote this, an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't feel very confident.
Yeah.
So what is the trick to, why do you think you're able to exude this even at the lowest times in your life. You're still able to kind of give that off. How do you think that is? What's the trick?
I think giving things a go, having courage. Courage is a fantastic anecdote for confidence, because if you have courage to try things, you glean experience, and with experience you can apply the learnings from that experience to your life, and so it compounds over time. And I think for me, I wasn't confident in front of the camera. I was profoundly self-conscious, and but I wanted what modeling could bring. So I wanted financial independence, I wanted to travel, I wanted to be free, I wanted to explore, I wanted new experiences, I wanted to meet people, I wanted glamour, I wanted what modeling as an opportunity could give me. And in fact, I wanted it more than the feeling of being in my comfort zone. So I was out of my comfort zone a lot.
Yeah. I do think that is a key to confidence. So a lot of times people think that they need to be confident in order to do something. Like, I'm not confident enough for that.
No, it's the contrary. Do it and you will gain confidence and trust in yourself. You realize, man, I didn't think I could do that. Actually, I did quite a good job. Or, you know what? I gave it a go. It wasn't for me. I think I'm going to really follow something else that resonates with me.
Absolutely. So you have to do it, and then that's what develops the confidence.
And keep doing it.
And keep doing it.
As long as it comes from your heart, from those inner urges that move you to take a step towards something. I always say to the boys, find what you love and do it. And if you do that, you'll never work another day in your life. But in order to find what you love, it's not like you're 18 and you just know. You have to try lots of things. So they always had summer jobs, doing different things to find out what their skills were, what rocked their world, what interested them. I mean, I remember one of my sons did a watchmaking workshop when he was very young, and he loved the intricacy of handmade watches. And since then he's not a watchmaker, but he has that's one of his things that he's passionate about, is watchmaking.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Right. And so
who would have thought? Yeah. Like, that's such a weird old time thing for a modern boy,
It's cool though, because there is that like science to it also, like how things work. Yeah. So he was probably intrigued by that. And somewhere that's still in his brain when he's doing things.
Yeah. He's definitely a find solutions kind of guy.
So is this your older son?
That's my
Floyd?
oldest. Flynn,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Flynn, after Errol Flynn.
Oh, okay. So he's the one with the watchmaking. And what did you say, the finer?
Well, he's actually working in business. He went to Babson, like your son, and he's working with his dad in business. And he's very good at sort of problem solving. And he applied that curiosity and meticulous attention to detail in his business life. So he didn't have to be a watchmaker, but the things that he loved about it, which was attention to detail, craftsmanship, finesse, beauty, curiosity, sort of awe at the mechanics of a handmade watch, those elements that fascinated him are the things that he puts into his business life. He uses that sense of curiosity in his business life.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
And you have that entrepreneurial kind of angle also that you've always had. I loved how you were interested in the business of modeling.
Yeah.
Right away. So you knew, like, well, how do I do this? How does this work? What does everybody need from me?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I see. The advertisers are looking for something. And so I need to help them, or the sponsors, I think you said. Right. So you're always looking at that. And that's been interesting, I imagine, throughout your life. You've had your businesses. You have your business now. You like business.
I like doing things to the best of my ability. I like delivering 1,000% for myself, and whatever I put my mind to, I put my heart to. First of all, I put my heart to it, and then I put my mind to it. So I like and I like seeing things from start to finish. When I had my lingerie business, first of all, it was an idea, and then it was a proposal to a young company, about licensing. Nobody was doing licensing at that time. And I sort of said, here's a unique kind of proposition. Why don't we create lingerie together? You're really good at the manufacturing. I'm great at kind of vision. I want to see women look beautiful. I'm interested for myself. So I worked on the art direction. I was the model. I worked on the design with the design team. I worked on the marketing. And the more I got to know it, the more passionate I was about. I was, because I was interested on, there was just so many different ways of expressing myself. And I found that fascinating and fulfilling and encouraging.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I'm interested too. There are so many things out there and ideas and things that you can do. Like sometimes there's so many ideas. Which ones do we go with, and which ones do we just kind of say maybe or maybe later?
Well, you tap into your heart regularly. Stop. Listen to your inner sense. And when I say inner sense, it's not necessarily a voice. It's an urge. It's a curiosity. It's that, I call it a zing and zong. If you think about something and you go, "Ooh, I love that," or you get goosebumps on your body, or you're just really, really curious, take a step towards that. And that's what I've done all my life, is find things through that inner sense.
Yeah, that's again trusting yourself. And understanding that you can feel things in your body. It's visceral sometimes. Yeah. And often. If you can be often. And if you can be tuned into that, not everybody is, but if you stop and you are tuned in, you'll see things.
Yeah. And the more you stop along the way, often, the more you develop that relationship with that inner sense, because we all have it. And I think a lot of people go, "Oh, no, that's not me. I'm not very intuitive. I'm super intellectual. If it doesn't make common sense, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense," But often the urges from the heart don't make sense. It doesn't mean not to pursue them. And that was definitely my experience in so many ways.
Right. So what were some of the lowest times for you when you were really disappointed or not feeling great?
Oh, there's been many.
That's why I said some. I didn't say what was the lowest.
Well, I mean, the hardest times for me have been around love. And the most beautiful times for me have been around love. In fact, when my son Flynn read the book, he said to me, "Mommy, this is really just a love story." And I thought that was so astute of him, because it has been a journey from my head to my heart. My life has been a journey from my head to my heart. And I think that's what we're here on earth doing. All of us is traveling from our sort of very 3D mind into a much greater expansion of a heart-led life. And so I would say, look, separation from my first husband, separation from the father of my children, getting sober was just prior to getting sober. Getting sober was the gem of the before getting sober. Health crisis in when I was 50. I didn't realize I was going through menopause, and when I went to doctors, they just sort of said, "Well, you're 50, this is normal." I was like, "But my hair is falling out, my skin is terrible, I'm putting on weight, I have no sense of vitality, I can't get up in the mornings, everything aches, I'm sugar addicted, I'm coffee addicted, I don't sleep." And they were like, "Yeah, welcome to being 50. And I'm like, no way. And it was the same with getting sober. The most difficult part was grappling with the dissonance within myself, and then finding a sort of an alignment within myself when I got sober. Cancer, being diagnosed with cancer, and then coming through it, thriving through it. Separation from my last husband, but realizing that he was never there to love me, but I was there to teach me how to love myself. And so with each moment of those big crossroads in my life, I found incredible inspiration and growth and evolution and fulfillment.
Yes, it's a lot.
So don't stop in the middle is what my message is, go through it and you will find the gems.
That's right. That's good advice.
Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of lows, and it's a perfect example for people to see too, that it's like you can get as low as you think you can be, but then you will come up again. And then, yes, you may be low again, but you'll come up again. Yeah. And so this is also the experience of life.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. And also life is all of the things. If you're just kind of coasting in life all the time and nothing goes on, like, you're not really experiencing that much.
Well, also the thing is to have non-judgment about the experiences. So that was a good experience, or that was a bad experience. No, they're experiences, and they're there. We've chosen them, even though, because we're not victims of our lives. We chose those experiences, whether consciously or unconsciously. We choose those experiences to learn and grow and to get to know ourselves and to love more. And we're here to love.
So tell me about a moment in one of your experiences with love when you were really feeling not good. Like, what did it feel like? Paint a picture for me.
I think the first one was when I separated from my husband, Gilles. And just to paint a little picture here, I married when I was 21. He was 40. He was a very well-known fashion photographer. I was just starting out in the modeling world. His name was Gilles, Frenchman. Didn't speak English, which was wonderful because I learned how to speak French in order to communicate with him. But I remember when we'd been together for about 8 years between dating and being married and separating. And I learned everything, so much about fashion and how to be a model and how to be a woman and how to work and to present myself and to build an image and to be that image. And when we separated, I had this huge, it was like the rug had been pulled out from under my feet. I felt so disconnected to myself, that my identity had been crafted like a Pygmalion story, and it wasn't something that was truly me.
How does your family history, like your background growing up in Australia, how did that impact you? I know when you started your book, you were talking about how your father's saying was, "Give it a go."
Yeah.
Right? That was something that you grew up with. But there was a lot of turmoil also growing up. So how do you see that as impacting who you've become?
Well, I learned from my parents that conflict begets conflict. And it's much more useful and worthwhile to don't fight against what you don't want in your life. It's much more valuable to instead create what you do want. And so I learned pretty early on that conflict doesn't really work. And that doesn't mean rolling over. It just means create what you truly want in life and put your energies into that. I also learned about discipline. My dad was profoundly disciplined, and he was also quite ingenious. And I learned about persistence, and consistency, and I mean, it's all the way through the book.
I know, but not everybody watching, listening.
I can't summarize. No, you have to read it, because I don't know that I'm doing it justice talking about it. It's very interesting. Having a conversation about it is very different from actually writing, because when one writes, there's a process that is of deep contemplation before, not before you write. I write, but there's deep contemplation as you flesh out your writings. And it's not really possible to do in a conversation like this.
Right. It's funny. My son and I were just talking, my other son, not the one from Babson. We were just talking about, he's applying to, it's sort of like a internship or something, but a trip actually in Peru. And he was talking about, you can submit either a short video about yourself or a short piece of writing about yourself. And he was contemplating, like, which one should I do? And they each have benefits, but we were talking about the fact that with writing, you can just pause in the middle of it. And pick up right there. Whereas with a video, even if you're just kind of doing your thoughts and you rehearse them ahead of time, even, you still have to go back, and it's a different animal.
Yeah, it is. And I think we can refine and craft the language so that it absolutely reflects what you're trying to say. And I really enjoyed that process when I was writing. And this is the first book I've written. I didn't know what I was doing. Give it a go. I was like, I don't know. A lot of it was just flow. I'd get up early in the mornings and write about 5 a.m. and just, I think it's very important for anyone who's contemplating writing is to write by hand with a pen and paper, and don't reread what you've written. Don't correct it. Don't try to edit it. Just write. Let it flow. Mm-hmm. And that was the process of this book. It was just a flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can always come back. Writing is rewriting, as they say. You can come back and make it better, but you have to really just get it out first. Yeah. And if you put no restrictions on yourself, it's easier to let
and
everything
it's pure.
out. Yeah.
It comes from the heart.
That's right. That's right. Without thinking too much about it, right? Because your brain can get in the way.
And your brain is not very, the brain is a great administrator. It's like a computer. It's really good at sort of applying things, but the heart is where all the magic is. That's where all the spontaneity and the genius and the unexpected is, and the unknown is all in the heart. The brain works with very known quantities, and it can be quite, it can keep you in a box.
Yeah. And also, your brain is what's responsible for fear, right? It's trying to protect you from whatever it thinks is a threat.
Right.
So your brain is doing its job. It's there for a reason, but it also gets in the way, and your heart has to kind of come out and say, oh, it's okay. Yeah. I know this is all going to be okay.
Yeah. Trust.
Yes. Was there anything that, as you were writing the book, you're like, I don't know if I really want to put this out there? Really?
There's so much. But, if I went through an editing process of that's too gnarly, or that's not very flattering, or I want to make it nice, then, for me, the authenticity of the book, the rawness and the truth was extremely important to me. And I also don't give details of things that don't matter. This is not a tell-all. In fact, a lot of people have said to me, the way you write about the men in your life is so graceful, because it's not a tell-all of, the who's who I've met and, conversations we've had. And there's only examples of things in my book that have lessons, that I share.
Did you send it to people beforehand?
I sent them excerpts of where they're written about, out of respect. I thought that was the elegant thing to do, and for them to be aware, and gave them the freedom to share with me what they felt about it. And I didn't get much feedback.
Really?
I know. The father of my children was really good, because he reminded me of things that I had forgotten, and it was really helpful. And my sons were also, one of my sons, Flynn, was adamant that I include that divorce doesn't mean that your children are going to be screwed for the rest of your life. And he was so adamant. It was like, Mom, it wasn't easy, but it was the making of me in many ways. And so he wanted me to include that. There were many things, many notes that he had or wanted me to include. He suggested.
So he gave you more of the feedback than anybody else who you sent excerpts to?
Yeah, but that's to be expected.
Yeah.
I think they were just looking for anything that they felt that was untrue for them.
Right. Or uncomfortable, maybe even.
Well, there's plenty of uncomfortability in there for everybody.
But they were okay with that.
I assume so.
Oh, okay. I think that's pretty cool that they didn't. They would have told you, I think.
They know me also. They know me. I have had a life that I've been extremely reserved, and respectful in my relationships and in my business relationships, in my public profile. I'm not a sort of clickbait kind of girl. And so they know who I am as a woman. And so I think they trusted that, whatever I was going to say was going to be said with grace and love and truth.
Right. If you were like a nightmare person, they would be like dreading a book coming out, right? But that's not, they know who you are. They know didn't have to worry. But still, it could feel a little bit unnerving for them. And it could feel unnerving for you just to wait for them to give you their feedback.
Well, there's a lot of, that's all the way through the book, relationships and circumstances. And, a lot of people are embarrassed about getting sober. I'm not.
Right. I do think that's right. That, I think, is a topic that a lot of people would be reluctant to talk about, but you seem very comfortable with it. I don't know if comfort is the word.
Talk about it because I want to inspire and encourage other people that are on a journey that are struggling with addiction. I feel that it's my gift to anybody that is struggling with addiction, and it may not be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be relationships, it could be shopping, it could be work, addiction to fear. There's so many people that have mental health struggles because they have perpetual feedback loops of fear, as you know. I mean, this is what you do. And that, there is a high that we can get from constantly looking for drama in life. Looking around corners, adult children of alcoholics, that's something that we really struggle with, is that we're always trying to anticipate the worst. It's a coping mechanism as a child, so I'll be able to cope with the worst. But in anticipating the worst, what we're actually doing is creating that through our energy field. And so that's a hard one to break as an adult, is to realize I don't need that coping mechanism anymore of going immediately to the worst thing that can happen and seeing if I could cope with it. Actually, what I want to do is assume the best, and I receive it.
That is one of the gems. That is one of the most important things that a lot of people struggle with, and you nailed it right there. And so it's a skill that was developed for a reason.
Yes.
At the time,
yes,
it served you well. But then later, it no longer serves you. And in fact, it's maladaptive and it will ruin things for you. So you have to recognize when it's time to say goodbye to that
and
defense
find
mechanism.
Ways how to. So, and with the help of, I had a therapist. I also had a wonderful spiritual mentor, Paul Darrell Walsh, which I talk about a lot in the book. And AA is a fantastic roadmap for life as well, where you have a wonderful community, and the 12 steps really helped me. So it's not enough just to recognize it, but to find support in how to restructure our neuron pathways in our brain.
Yeah.
And that comes through repetitive thinking and feeling and actions. And so to read or to divert those neuron pathways, we also have to have repetitive thoughts and actions in a different direction, in a more loving, fulfilling, flowful, aligned direction. And that takes discipline. And that I've been very fortunate, because discipline is one of my God-given gifts.
So you know what you're talking about, by the way. You have the facts. Like, you really do understand. You're not just putting some concepts out there that you're just kind of, that have no scientific backup even. Like, when we're talking about these concepts, it's neuroplasticity, right? So this is how the brain works. And we get these pathways and these patterns over time. Yeah. But in order to change them, when we can, we have to repeat something new. It's interesting. How was it to talk about your breast cancer diagnosis in the book? Like, were you kind of on the fence about that at all?
Well, I mean, it would have been totally inauthentic if I admitted it. And I knew that it was, could have been seen as controversial. It was never meant to be. It was that chapter, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017. That chapter about breast cancer is really profoundly about how to make a decision when we're gripped with fear. And in my case, it was a life or death situation. So the fear was genuine. It wasn't just a figment of my imagination. And it wasn't about what I did. It's by no means an instruction manual on, what to do if you have cancer and what kind of protocol to follow or anything like that. It is about, how do you make a decision when the outside world is so loud that you can barely hear yourself breathe, let alone find a solution. And you have questions that need to be answered, and you need actions to be taken, and you just don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. And that chapter is about that.
Was that your intention then, going in, like, this is how I'm going to talk about cancer?
Well, this was my experience with cancer. I think the cancer itself was a mind.
You can say it.
Fuck. Like me, of all people, like the most natural health and wellness girl. And that's when I realized that any dis-ease in our body is exactly that, a dis-ease, and that it is not purely genetic or physical. It may be partially, but it's also emotional, spiritual, and mental misalignment.
So did they tell you it's life or death?
If I said to anybody, you've been diagnosed with cancer, what's the first thing you think of?
I think the first thing I would think of, okay, what stage is it?
Well, I mean, I've seen people with stage 4 cancer and survive, and stage 0 cancer and die, So I for me, it wasn't so much about the stage. It was that there is a real threat of making a mistake in the treatment that I sought, or it was a death sentence.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest fear for everybody probably, is that it's a death sentence. Does this mean the end?
Yes.
So those were some of the thoughts that went through your mind at that time.
Yeah. Very uncomfortable. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But, for me, it was a catalyst. It was such a magnificent sort of catalyst, because I did a deep dive into everything that could have caused it, that could heal it, that could rebalance. I got to know my body so well. And I also realized that all that time when I'd been not appreciating my body, and the only thing that mattered was getting well, and nothing else matters, and so that was, and then so how do I get well? How do I stay well? Was really, and that's why I'm still so passionate about Wellco, which I had developed 10 years before.
Right. So you developed that before, and then there was another lump in your breast, right, that you felt?
Yes, when that was the beginning of Wellco, I felt a lump in my breast, and I wanted to know, why did I get that lump? It was not a cancerous lump.
It was benign.
Yeah, it was benign. It was a cystic fibroadenoma, as they call it. But I started thinking back then, what's going on?
So that's why you developed Wellco.
Yes,
and
because
then it was a few years later.
Yeah.
What did you have another? Did you feel another lump in your breast?
No, nothing.
Oh, I
did a regular checkup, and I recommend those. I personally don't do mammographies. I do ultrasound, and the doctor said to me, "There's an unusual mass in your breast, and we have to do a biopsy." And then the biopsy, and you get one diagnosis with the biopsy, and then I did a lumpectomy, and then I got another diagnosis with that lumpectomy, and then I did another second lumpectomy, and it was an even different sort of diagnosis, or a more profound diagnosis, perhaps.
What do you mean by more profound diagnosis?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to go into the details of the medical stuff, because it's like anybody, that's sort of medical records and
personal.
Yeah. It's the learning through it that really matters. It doesn't really matter. And and I also don't want people sort of going, oh, I have that, therefore I've got to do what she did. Because
that's dangerous territory also, I feel, you might feel.
Well, for anybody
responsible
to follow somebody else's plan, you have to find what works for you, with all the advice that you get from the people that you trust and respect. And then you get very quiet within yourself and go, okay, what resonates? What do I truly believe in my heart is the best path to follow?
Yeah, again, that's that self-trust.
Yeah. So, and I was fortunate because I had quite a lot of experience in that up till then. It was almost like all my life experience had led me to that moment when I was diagnosed, that I was able to dig deep and trust.
Yeah. That's what your life is about. And you don't know when you're going through your life what you're building to help you later.
So true.
But you are.
You're creating your future by your present. That's why it's so important to be in the now. Right now, not in the past, and not in the future. It's right here, right now that we create our future.
So you mentioned that, I know that you've had a therapist.
Yes.
So what is one of the things that your therapist taught you that's invaluable?
Oh, there's not just one, so I couldn't, I don't think I could isolate one. I mean, it was a gentle uncovering, flowering of understandings. And there were things that she would say to me early on, and then I just would get so angry with her. I would walk out and I'd go, she doesn't know me. She's making up, it's some therapist's perspective and she's putting me into a box. But as time went on, she planted seeds, and those seeds became markers of awareness for me. Now, I didn't necessarily have to agree with what she was saying, but I was aware, and that awareness blossoming within me gave me the sort of self-awareness that ultimately has become a great strength. And I encourage everybody to go on that journey of self-awareness because it's beautiful.
Yeah. So it's so interesting to me what you're saying about the therapy experience, because as a therapist, I'm intrigued by, it's always useful to know what the person on the other, in the other chair is thinking. So yeah, so a therapist, so she told you some things. You were like, what the, so what were some of the things that she said?
Oh, well, I think you need to go to rehab. And I was like, no. I mean, look, I've been sort of, caning it lately. And I said, I remember at the beginning of the summer, she said to me, Elle, I really think that in order to get this sort of sorted, you need to go to rehab. You need to stop. You need to have a rebalancing on every level, physically, with alcohol, emotionally and spiritually and mentally. You need to break. And I was like, yeah, I got it. I just won't drink. And I've never really tried not to drink, so I'll just not drink. And I'm going to Ibiza for 3 months, for the summer. And she was like, I don't think that's such a good idea.
Right, that's not the kind of...
And I didn't want to hear that. I was like, no worries, I got it. And then, of course, after about 8 weeks or 6 weeks, I was a basket case. And I realized that I couldn't stay stopped drinking without some help. And then I just said, okay, I'm going. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to hear I couldn't go to Ibiza. I didn't want to hear that I had to go to rehab. I didn't want to hear that alcohol was only a symptom of much deeper issues. I thought it was just a purely surface thing. And that was a perfect example of her telling me a lot of stuff that I didn't want to hear about.
Right. It's also interesting because you still went back, right? You didn't say, she doesn't know what she's talking about, I'm out of here.
Something always resonated in what she said, even if it made me angry, even if I thought she didn't know what she was on about, even if I thought I was being stereotyped. Something, that little voice inside me thought, okay, I need to have a think about this, or I need to have a feel about this.
What are you still working on?
Working is just energy applied. That's the definition of work in my life. So I'm applying my energy to joy, love, fulfillment, creativity, service. Mm-hmm. The thing that gives me the most joy is helping other people. And I know that sounds really corny, but I believe that there's a chemical reaction. Something happens within you when you open-heartedly help another human being. And I think that is the value of service, is that inner experience that we have, not just a moral thing, like that's a good thing to do is to help someone. It helps us.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah. And human connection is everything, I think.
Yeah.
Right? That's it's the driver, it's the motivation, and it is the reward. It's the whole thing that life is about.
And human connection to ourselves.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we often think it's outside ourselves. I'll feel better if I feel connected to that person, or to that job, or to that income stream, or to that dress, right. Pair of jeans in my case. But really the biggest pain I have felt in my life is the disconnection with myself. Is absolutely demoralizing.
How do you know, like, what's your red flag now when you know, I'm disconnected again?
When I'm in fear. when I'm anxious, in fear, expecting the worst, can't see the wood through the trees. You know, it's almost like I've got a whiteout. I'm numb.
So what do? Do you call your therapist?
No, meditate is a wonderful way to connect with self, get quiet. So stop, relax, listen, trust, and then act on whatever you come into. Singing, a hug. So a 26-second hug releases more oxytocin than any drug you'll ever take. A 6-second kiss will mend any argument between anyone. At least give it a go. It's fun. Grounding, get outside, take your shoes off, put your feet on the soil. Hug a tree. Sounds so corny, but trees are so brilliantly wise and powerful. And I'm probably going to be laughed at for saying that. Meditation, stop, physical connection with somebody, umming, create a vibration within yourself, helps rebalance your chakras. Listen to music. Listen to my audio book, because it's got all healing instruments on it that we open up every chapter. It's scored by my boyfriend Doyle, who's an amazing producer and musician. But every chapter opens with a piece of music. And the music, even though it seems very melodic, it might be guitar or a fugal or a piano, it's infused with healing tones. So gongs, sound bowls, ancient instruments that are tuned to the earth's resonance. And that has an amazing effect on your parasympathetic nervous system, which allows you to kind of rest and relax and to receive. So get the audiobook.
Also good. What's a common misconception people have about you?
I don't know what people think about me.
You don't?
No, I really don't. I don't know. I don't, because I've evolved so much as a being myself. I'm not sure that people have a perception of me at all.
Do they tell you things when they meet you, like strangers, let's say, oh, Elle, you mean so much to me because of, or whatever, or I thought you would be, or anything like that?
A lot of people thank me for creating Wellco, because they've tried the products and they have recognized the change in their health and well-being. My experience and discussions around turning 60 has really inspired a lot of women, because we're taught to believe that once you kind of are no longer in childbearing age, that we're not as valuable anymore, or life sort of stops when your children move out of home. You have emptiness syndrome. And I found that life just began when I turned 60. I felt there's a freedom that comes from the end of your cycles. There's a freedom that comes when your children become independent, and that we can explore things that we've always wanted to do or never had time to do, or explore love in a different way when it's not just in a partnership raising children. And I have found such joy in that freedom. And so change of perspectives for people, sharing a different perspective that opens up their heart and mind to perhaps different ways of looking at their life.
Yeah. And what have you learned about women in general?
Oh, that we're extraordinary. But we are all extraordinary, men, women, and children. It's not the empowerment of women, it's the empowerment of the soul. Each and every one of us that I'm interested in, that bringing out our unique beauty, no matter who we are, what age we are, into this world, is so extraordinary and worthwhile and valuable, and therein lies the journey. Bring out your uniqueness into the world, men, women, and children.
And it's so nice, I think, for people to be able to see women like you or men like you, whoever, in this position where as you're aging, life is getting better and better, and you're really coming into yourself even more is what it seems like. I feel that way personally. So I think other people do as well. It's so good to see that. Do you feel like you had people who were ahead of you to look at and be like, oh yes, this is how I see, my life later?
I couldn't have anticipated my life at all. Like when I started modeling, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and I was going to marry the banker around the corner and have a very stable life and have, gorgeous children and go and play cricket on a Saturday afternoon drinking a gin and tonic, that's with a beautiful white house. Was probably the kind of vision I had for myself. That's as far as it could go. I had no idea that taking those first courageous steps, going to New York when I was 18 years old, would open up this plethora of opportunity and to expand and explore and experience life. There was nobody that I really looked up to in the sense of I want to be like her or him. I really just wanted to experience life. I thought life was magical. Yeah. Yes, when I went to the prom, I had my hair done like Bo Derek. Okay. Because that was the sort of, she was the girl at the moment. So right. I remember having these sort of like corn braids and a dress my mother found that was a very kind of 80s dress. Didn't really go with the corn braids. But, so there were women that I thought were beautiful. But it wasn't like I wanted to have their life. I just wanted the most expanded version of my own life. Mm-hmm. And share it with others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then there you are with Billy Joel.
Oh my gosh, what an experience. Who would have thought that? So I was on one of my very first jobs. I go to St. Bart's. I'd be modeling for like 3 or 4 months. And I get there, and the other model was Whitney Houston, who was not a singer at the time. She was a model. Christy Brinkley was there as well. She was shooting one of her health and wellness beauty books. And Billy Joel was there on vacation. And so it was the 4 of us for this week. You couldn't have get a more mix-matched group of people. And it was, it was one of those pinch me moments, I think, at the time, especially as I kind of grew up with Billy Joel and I knew all the lyrics to all his songs. And, he was like a pop star at the time. And, it was. I've met the most extraordinary people along the way, mm-hmm. and had the most invigorating experiences.
Are there people that you would wish that were still in your life more, or that you would like to get to know more?
I love making space for new energy that comes into our life that is in alignment with who we are today. And I think some of the mistakes we make is trying to hang on to people from the past, or relationships from the past, or feelings from the past, or experiences that we've had, and try to recreate them in the now. They never work. So I think trying to replay old stories in the now is not helpful. But are there people, I miss my grandmothers. I would like to be able to see one of my grandmothers and say, let's make a rice pudding together. But they're always with me. I believe that we don't truly die. I think the physical body changes form, but our energy and spirits and the way we touch people remains forever. And so they're always with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Any regrets?
No, because I think that is probably one of the most toxic things we can have in our life. And I'm not into toxicity at this point. I learned that through cancer. So no regrets. Because every experience, whether it was pleasant or unpleasant, and there have been many unpleasant experiences. I'm not painting a sort of, rosy life. There have been things that have been deeply painful, profoundly painful. But I learned through them. Mm-hmm. And I have found a sense of, I can look at my life with wise eyes today, as a wise elder, and go, I understand why that happened and what I learned from it and what it's brought me as its gift.
Mm-hmm. And was there one moment that you feel like early in your life or in the middle or whatever that was really the greatest thing to have happened?
Birth of my children. Nothing prepared me for the unconditional love that I experienced with the birth of my children. I didn't know what love was. I thought love was all the fluffy feelings that you get when, somebody gives you a piece of jewelry, or I don't know, but like that unconditional love without judgment, pure love. And I just wanted to love everybody like that. I wanted to be able to love everybody the way I loved my children. And that has been a practice, throughout my life, to love without judgment.
Interesting. Yeah, what you feel with your kids, it's almost hard to explain. Sometimes I'll think about one of my kids, or I'll see all three of them together,
and you well up with tears.
My hand goes to my heart. Yeah. I'm like, I just can't even, the depth with which it's everything.
But it's not, for me, it's the quality of the love. It's not attached to, I love them because they're mine, and I talk there's quite a few pages on the concept of feeling that we own our children, or own anybody for that matter. So I love them not because they're my children, but the love that I feel for those souls is the love that I want to feel for everybody. And they taught me about unconditional love, and I'm so deeply grateful for that.
Wonderful. Okay, good. Great. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. That was one and done.
Up next, my heart-to-heart with model and OG MTV VJ, Daisy Fuentes. You may be shocked by our real thoughts on aging, Botox, and facelifts. Plus, you'll get some inside scoop on what really goes on inside of women's friendships. Tap that subscribe button and take a look at what's next.